Hey everyone, here's my intro for how I do Shakespeare in my class, and just some stuff that's good to know before you get into reading or studying a Shakespeare text. So the way I do it is I like to have the text in front of each student, have professional audio performance going that we stop and analyze, and then while that's happening, while I'm talking to students and pausing and talking, there's text-reliant scene activities that force you, individual or the individual student, to go into the text and find things. Not for the whole play, but for parts of the play. So there's always some students that are analyzing and some students are just kind of being there in the moment with the text. Some issues with this. There's a huge argument between doing basically what I'm doing and showing a performance. Now, Shakespeare, his plays are plays. They're designed to be performed. That is 100% true and correct. But I find when it comes to understanding, unless you can see the words and think about the words like that, a performance doesn't help that much if you don't know what the words mean, what's going on. If this is like your intro text, yeah, you get that someone is angry or someone is happy, or whatever, but just by someone waving their arm in the air, it doesn't give meaning to the words. I do a lot of stop and go. That's kind of the only way to do a close reading. It can get repetitive and it can get long. You know, if I were to show a Shakespeare text as a movie, that would be 1 week of classes. But to do a close reading could be up to 5. Good stuff. You'll actually understand it. Therefore, you can learn it, you can enjoy it and learn from it. And it's immersive in the words. And to me, that's the key of Shakespeare, the words, not the actor doing it. Also, when you watch a production, you're at the whims of the director, of the actors, to determine how this character works. So it's relying on the portrayal as opposed to the words. So, examples of kind of what I do, and just kind of walk you through it. You might see this, whence camest thou? You could maybe figure some of this out, but probably not unless you have some keywords, and part of my job is to just reframe a lot of these difficult passages or confusing passages and the repetition of the reframing helps them stick in your brain. So, whence camest thou? Whence is from where. Camest is came, thou is you. From where came you? You came from where? Where did you come from? Okay, example 2. Wherefore art thou Romeo? That's the most mistranslated or misunderstood line in all of Shakespeare. That's because wherefore does not mean where. Juliet is not looking out and trying to find Romeo. She doesn't know he's there. He's creeping in the bushes. Wherefore is actually an old way of saying why. Art, in the sense, means are. Why are? Thou, we learned thou from the last one. Thou is you. Why are you Romeo? Yeah, why'd you have to be Romeo? Why'd you have to be a Montague? Why'd you have to be my family's great enemy? Example 3. Then be thou jocund. Okay. Thou is you. Jocund, just an old word for happy. Then be you happy. Then you be happy. You should be happy then. Ere the set of sun. So E-R-E, pronounced air, like the air you breathe. It just means before. It's an older way of saying before. So before the set of sun. The set of sun is just really abbreviated the setting of the sun. Before the setting of the sun. Oh, dusk. Some other stuff about working with Shakespeare. There's a unique density of complexity in his works. You can literally analyze every single line. Because of the oldness, but also the complexity of the language and ideas, you can look at every single line and find deeper and deeper meaning. For example, I was in a Shakespeare seminar in college, and the professor was literally explaining the exact point. He opened up his Riverside Shakespeare, pointed to a random line in the text, and said, let's talk about it. And this was the line from King Lear, his dog-hearted daughters. Dog-hearted daughters. What does that mean to be dog-hearted? And his daughters to be dog-hearted. And we just talked about it. You can't do this with every book, with every play, with every work of literature. You guys know this if you listen to music. Some songs, there's almost no meaning, or there's no deep meaning. It's all surface level. And some songs, every single line is important and deep and can be read and analyzed. Okay. None of us are as smart as Shakespeare or understand all of his thoughts and meanings. We are not Shakespeare. We're not as smart as Shakespeare. If we were, I wouldn't be here. So the scholars aren't even as smart as Shakespeare. They don't get everything he's saying. So I'll get some of the stuff wrong, just like they get some of the stuff wrong, or they don't agree. So, for example, if you read Macbeth, you learn that Macbeth gets obsessed with something. I've heard literally two different scholars, both PhDs in different universities, both have literally opposite reasons or reasoning for why Macbeth gets obsessed with this. Maybe they're both right, maybe they're both wrong, maybe it's something else, but we are not Shakespeare. Not all parts of the text are equal. Every single part of a text in a professional piece of writing has a purpose. What is the purpose here? Is it to establish theme, move the plot, humor, wordplay, to convey morals, show morals, whatever. So not all parts are equal. So you don't focus on each part equally. For example, in Romeo and Juliet, Romeo has a lot of banter with Benvolio and Mercutio. It's fun and witty, but for the most part, it adds humor, or only adds humor. It adds a little bit of characterization. Is that really worth a lot of time? Is that worth it to spend a lot of time on? Probably not. No two Shakespeare works are the same. They each require different background knowledge and context, and not all of that background knowledge and context are useful. So, for example, the idea of the great chain of being is relevant for Macbeth, King Lear, Hamlet, and Julius Caesar, but it's not relevant for Romeo and Juliet. It's not relevant for Othello. Those are ideas that only work in some plays and not others. And what mattered to Shakespeare's audience, or Shakespeare himself, versus what matters to us? Sometimes there are things in Shakespeare that's clearly important to his audience, or to him, or kind of his world, but we could really care less about. So, for example, does it really matter that Macbeth was written in large part to appease King James I? Does it help you understand Macbeth, saying, "Oh, this is how it connects to the current King of England, and why Macbeth put that line in there"? Or does it just matter that it's a good play? And of course, as with any reading of a complicated text, or any reading of anything, there's a balance between enjoying it, appreciating it, understanding it, and relating to it. You can't do everything in one reading. It's like, think of a song. You can dance to the song, or you can sit there and think about the meaning of the song. It's hard to do both at the same time. So, all parts of the text will not be equally focused on and explained. There's just not enough time for that, and that's how you ruin a text, by going too deep into it. So, some stuff to know for reading Shakespeare. Even though Shakespeare was writing in the English Renaissance, his world was very much still a medieval world. So their understanding of science and physiology and chemistry was underdeveloped. So they actually thought that your body had 4 humors. They were like substances that had to be in balance for you to be healthy. And if you had too much of one, it would make you give you too many emotions that substance creates. So if you have an equal amount of all of these, you're a well-balanced person. That's where that comes from. And it, connects to the seasons and probably astrology and blah, 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 and all that nonsense. Yeah, this is not science. This is just big stuff. But they thought it was real. From all my years of teaching Shakespeare, I find that there are 3 things that make it difficult to understand. 1, the complex figures of language. 2, the complicated non-standard syntax. And 3, archaic and old words. So let's do a brief intro to these. Complex figurative language. So literal language is when the actual meaning of the words. What do the words mean in the physical world and their physically true interpretation? That's the literal meaning of that word. Figurative is any deviation from that. Generally, figurative language is used to increase meaning, but it has drawbacks. Mostly because it can cloud meaning, and often every time you use figurative language, you're technically lying. You guys know the basics. Metaphor, simile, hyperbole, paradox, irony, etc. There's a whole bunch, and there's, depending on who you're asking and which Renaissance writer, there can be these distinct individual kinds. Why does Shakespeare do this? His plays are really poetry. He likes to play with language, and all high-level fiction does this. Really just all high-level writing, not just high-level fiction. they'll be highly figurative. Okay, complicated syntax or non-standard syntax. So I'm going to show you 3 words with the same parts of speech. I want you to look at each one and kind of say, "Ooh, is this?" And judge each on how correct or understandable they are. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds. Furiously sleep, ideas green colorlessly. Colorless, green ideas sleep furiously. Colorful, green flowers grow slowly. Okay, you probably know which one of these is good and bad and kind of sorta, but you don't have the words to explain it. And that's one of the miracles actually of grammar. You know all the grammatical rules, but you don't know the words for them. Let me add 2 ideas. Semantics and syntax. Semantics is about meaning, and syntax is about sentence structure, order of words. So look at these again. With those 2 words I introed, semantics and syntax, come up for why one of these is good, one of these is bad, one of these is I'm not quite sure. Okay, here's the answer. The top one has no syntax and no semantic meaning. There's just, we call this a word salad, just words thrown in there in a random order. They don't work in that order, they don't make meaning in that order. But the second one has syntax, has correct word order, but has no semantic meaning. It doesn't mean anything. It can't mean anything. So, green describes ideas, colorless describes green, sleep, furiously describes sleep, but ideas can't be green can't be colorless, and you can't sleep furiously because then it wouldn't be sleep. And the last one has correct syntax and correct semantic meaning. Colorful, green flowers grow slowly. Flowers can be green can be colorful. The growing of something could be slowly. Okay. So semantics regarding the meaning, syntax, the sets of rules that govern how sentences are constructed. So for example, in English, determiners go before the nouns they modify. You look at these 2 examples and that feels weird because it's wrong, because you know the and go before the thing they modify. Another example, adjectives in English appear before the nouns they modify. In English, you can have a dirty mouth. That's adjective noun. But if you've ever taken high school Spanish, you know it's boca sucia, noun adjective. So in Spanish, the adjectives are after the noun. One is not better than the other. It's just the way that those languages work. English is mostly an analytic language, which means that the meaning of the sentence is mostly dependent on word order and not inflections. For example, dog bites man and man bites dog mean completely different things. And this is a difference in word order. It has all the same words. Something I learned in high school Spanish. In Spanish, you can have words that are whole grammatically correct sentences. So the Spanish word dígame. What is it? It's the infinitive decir, which means to say or to tell. You conjugate it to diga, meaning you tell me, so the subject is implied. You add the inflection me to the end, meaning to me, so that's the receiver. And thus one word, dígame, means the whole sentence, you tell me, or tell me. This can never happen in English. Yes, we do have, you can add plural and possession to nouns, and you could add tense to verbs, but you can't do that. The subjects in English are outside of the verbs, and this is something they never told me in high school Spanish. When you conjugate a verb, you're adding the subject to it. Like, no one put it in grammar terms. It just said this is the way it works. So when we talk about syntax, we basically mean that sentences have structure, and things can move around. Syntax normally refers to one of 2 things. 1, the order and placement of individual words in a sentence. So let me show you a sentence. Same words, 4 different ways, but the adverb quickly is moved in different spots. Quickly, I ate the sandwich. I quickly ate the sandwich. I ate quickly the sandwich. I ate the sandwich quickly. So that third one is really not very good. But the other ones make sense. There's a slight variation in meaning, but the major difference is style. So you can just move that adverb around quickly, because quickly is always modifying ate. The eating is the thing that's being done quickly. No matter where you put it, it's always modifying ate. So let's take that same sentence, I ate the sandwich quickly, and add the prepositional phrase in the cafeteria. In the cafeteria, I ate the sandwich quickly. I, in the cafeteria, ate the sandwich quickly. I ate the sandwich in the cafeteria quickly. I ate the sandwich quickly in the cafeteria. So from here, like prepositional phrases can kind of move all the way around sentences too and not really change the meaning, though some of the meanings here are slightly different. So the second thing about syntax is the order and placement of whole grammatical sections of a sentence. Our standard English sentence is SVO, subject, verb, object. That's the order that most of our English sentences are in. Now, not all sentences have an object, but generally things that are not subjects and verbs, we like to put them after the verb, prepositional phrases. So let's take a look. Often, but for questions, we move this. Objects go to the front. She's eating what? We would probably say, oh, what is she eating? He hit who? We'd probably say, who did he hit? I ate the sandwich. That's a nice prototypical fun sentence. I is a subject, ate is a verb, the sandwich is the object. You can, now what Shakespeare will do, he'll take these grammatical sections and he'll move them around. I, the sandwich, ate, is in subject, object, verb. So, I should probably say what these are. The subject is the main character, the doer of the sentence. The verb is the action, the thing being done. The object is the receiver of the verb. Yes, there are many different kinds of verbs, like linking, helping, transitive, and intransitive, and therefore not all verbs have an object, or not all sentences have an object. Sometimes there's nothing, or just a modifier, or a subject complement. This is oversimplifying it, but this is just the intro lesson. So we did this before, let's do it again. Let's take I ate the sandwich and put it in all of its 6 possible arrangements of subject, verb, object. I the sandwich ate the sandwich I, ate I the sandwich I ate, the sandwich ate I. Now, you might be saying, but wait a minute, Mr. B, that second one, that last one, the sandwich ate I, that means you were eaten by a giant sandwich, doesn't it? No. So you probably knew this, you just didn't know the grammatical rule for it. A lot of our pronouns in English have a subject form and an object form. The subject is the main character, the doer. The object is the receiver. So I is always the subject, no matter where it is in a sentence. Why? Because if it was an object, it would be me. So look at these sample sentences and just plug them in. On the left, you have all the subjects. I went to the mall, you went to the mall, he went to the mall, she went to the mall, it went to the mall, we went to the mall, they went to the mall. On the right, we have all the objects. Mom yelled at me, you, him, her, it, us, you, them. Now, when you switch these, it starts not making sense, or it sounds like a caveman. Me went to the mall. Ugh. Her went to the mall. Them went to the mall. And the same thing with the objects. Mom yelled at he. Mom yelled at they. No. See how it doesn't feel right? Well, that's the rule. A lot of our pronouns in English have subject forms and object forms. So why does Shakespeare do this? He needs to meet the meter, that 10 syllables per line, unstressed, dressed. So he has to move things around to hit that. He likes to play with the language, and that was kind of the convention of the day. Highly educated people will not, or highly educated writers will not stick to that SVO all the time. They'll break that convention. Now, the third, probably the toughest hard thing about understanding Shakespeare is archaic, their old words and their meanings. These are the these and thous, and when people stereotype Shakespeare, this is what it is. Now, there's probably about 50 that you should be kind of in your brain. When I teach this in class, I always have a cheat sheet on the side of the desk. But there should be about 50 you have in your brain, and you can do most of Shakespeare from that. There are complicated words that only appear like once in a text, like incarnadine in Macbeth. That's not worth memorizing. It appears once in Macbeth, and you'll never hear it again. But these words you'll see all the time in pretty much all Shakespeare plays, or most Shakespeare plays. So first, we have second-person pronouns, additional ones that we don't have anymore. So if you've learned in high school Spanish or French that a lot of times there's a formal and an informal, the tu and the usted form, early modern English, Shakespeare's English used to have that. thou, thee, thy, and thine, that's the singular informal, when you're being informal with someone or you're talking down to someone. And ye is ye, you, yours, and yours is plural, or it's formal. This is why you hear the town crier, hear ye, all of you, hear me. That's the plural you. And we actually, that would be helpful to still have, because a lot of our dialects of English will make up a plural second person pronoun. Yous, you guys, youn, y'all, because we just don't have one, because you is ambiguous. It's both singular and it's both plural at the same time. We just went over that. Shakespeare will conjugate verbs by adding st or est at the end. Once you know that it happens, once you see it, it makes complete sense. Know, thou knowest, thou knewest, you know, you knew. Drive, thou drivest, thou drovest. You drive, you drove. Make, thou madest, thou madest. The be and art are very important. So are could be art, be could be beest, was could be wast or wert, from were. The do and did is very important. Thou dost, thou doest, thou didst. Some of these are still used. Thou shalt, thou go, thou wentest, thou hast, thou hath, thou hadst. Once you see these and you know that this exists, it makes way more sense when you see it on the page. Omissions. For the sake of poetry and meter, Shakespeare uses a lot of omissions, just like we do. So, for example, look at this teenage exchange. Been to class yet? No. Red B is given a test. What's up with that? I would be B, Mr. B. That is not grammatically correct. There's a lot of omissions there. What would it sound like without omissions? We would probably say this. Have you been to class yet? No, I have not been to class. I heard that Mr. B is giving a test today. What is up with that? Yeah, that sounds terrible. It sounds like a really, really bad fan fiction writer. Because that's just the way people speak. We cut things out of our speech all the time. So, here are the most common Shakespeare omissions. A lot of them we still use. So, tis is it is. Tis the season to be jolly. 'Twas, it was. 'Twas the night before Christmas. You've heard that. A lot of times what he'll do is he'll drop a consonant out to reduce the syllable count of a sentence. So, never is 2 syllables. But if you drop the V, you can kind of make it 1, maybe 1.5. Ne'er. Okay. Ever is 2. Ere. Oft, you've probably seen oft before. It's often. Even, in. So people still do this all the time. There was a rap song when I was growing up that changed everybody to buddy, because everybody is 4 syllables. Buddy is 3. You can now fit that word in different places that you couldn't fit the other one. So why does Shakespeare do this? To meet the meter, to play with the language. And this was really normal for his period. Every single word in a language are in one of 3 categories. They're in use, words we use every day. They're archaic. They're grammatically correct, but old, and you won't normally hear them. And they're obsolete. So they're old and they're not grammatically correct. They have no meaning anymore. You cannot use them. A lot of the words that are tough in Shakespeare are the archaic words, that middle category. So here's the most common ones. I'm just going to quickly go through them. Most of these are in most of the plays. So here we go. Anon is right now or away. I come anon, good nurse. Alack, oh no! Alack the day, he's gone. Alas, we actually still say this. An exclamation of grief. Alas, poor Romeo. Art, so we did say art is R, and it is, but sometimes art means skill, like art class or something like that. Ought is anything. You might still hear this in the real world. Avant, it's go away. Shoo, shoo. When a pirate says yes to his captain, what does he say? He says, aye, aye, captain, because aye is an old word for saying yes. You've heard that before. Base is just low in worth or rank or quality. Bawd, okay, this one requires a little bit of explaining. Bawd is a devious person. A person that's devious in a sexual manner. Shakespeare has a lot of bawdy jokes. Those are dirty jokes. Those were very, very common in Shakespeare. They're all over Shakespeare, more plays than in others. But that's a kind of humor that's existed pretty much since the dawn of time. beseech, implore, or beg. Beshrew, a curse. Dost or doth, we already looked at that, does or do. Ere, now this is the number one most important thing. E-R-E, pronounced ere, means before. This is the most common archaic word in all of Shakespeare. Close fighting, ere I did approach. Would make no sense unless you knew what ere meant. It means before. Close fighting before I did approach. Oh, they were fighting before I approached. Fancy, just like a love, you can fancy something. People still use this. Feign, gladly or willingly. Fie, dismay or disgust. Fie, for shame. Forsooth, in truth, certainly, truly. Some of these words have similar meanings. Hark, listen. This is still used. There's that famous Christmas song, Hark the herald angels sing. Listen to the herald angels sing. Heavy, you can actually still hear people say this. Heavy just means sad, like emotionally sad. Hence is away. Hie is hurry, so it's a verb. Hither is here, thither is there. Whither is where, here, there, where. Ho is hey. This is why Santa Claus says ho, ho, ho. He's saying hey, hey, hey. It's like he's waving hi to everyone. Humor, we talked about those, the four humors, be a well-balanced person, basically a mood or emotional state or health state. Knave, could be a boy or a servant, someone younger than you, or a word for someone negative word for someone, a scoundrel or a rascal or a rogue, something like that. Liege is someone you owe allegiance to, or your king. Mark, we still use this, we don't know why to use it. Mark means pay attention to. So, mark my words means pay attention to my words. Marry is indeed or a mild swear. Methinks, methoughts, that actually makes a lot of sense. It seems to me. Nay is no, you've heard this before. Not or naught is nothing, you've probably seen that in the world before. Pray or prithee, a polite way of asking something. Perchance is maybe. Saucy, people still use this. It just means sassy, a saucy girl. Sirrah, a way to address inferiors, kind of like boy or something like that. Verily is truly. Wench is an old way of saying girl. If you've ever been to a Renaissance fair, you've heard this. Whence means from where. We saw that in the beginning. Wherefore is why. We saw that in the beginning. Whereto is to which, not to where, to which. Withal as well. Want, people still use this. You're in the habit of. Yonder, yond, people still use this. It means over there, or that one over there, or that one. Okay, that's it. Talk to you guys later.